Richardson, hey, just a quick math. So you're asking for how many? 3?
3.
And
Yes.
how many do you have now?
We have approximately 17, and I believe I described in there that some were purchased new, some are quite old, and some are have been forfeited by wildlife criminals through the court system. So
Okay.
they're in various states
of
of,
repair, sure.
age and repair, yes.
And so that was about 20? How many?
17 that I was able to account for, and then with the addition of 3, again, we have 3 administrative regions, so the thought process was provide each of our administrative regions with 1 new ATV.
And how many actual game wardens do you have?
We have approximately 32 field game wardens, so these 17 are shared amongst different agents, officers, and because of the distance between some of them, it makes it very difficult to share an off-road vehicle.
So the need is there, is what I'm trying to get at.
Excuse me?
The need is there.
Yes,
Oh,
it is.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Elmore?
Commissioner Elmore, for the record. Of the 17 existing units that you have, can you tell us how many of them you would consider operable? If you said some were in a poor state, and also, do you share those units? Are those just in the law enforcement division, or do biologists, Habitat, the other divisions of NDOW have access to those 17 machines?
And to answer your question about the state of repair, we try to keep all of our equipment in very good condition, but as they get older, sometimes the cost of repair and outfitting those older models, at some point, it's time to move on to a newer model of OHV. These 17 are specific to the law enforcement division.
Okay.
So it's mostly game wardens that do use those.
Right, that was one of my questions. And are all 17 of the existing units operable in the field right now?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along because we don't want to get behind schedule here. Are there any other questions from the commission? Okay, sir, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And next we
Yeah, thank you.
have BLM, Sun Mountain Law Enforcement Project. Yeah, but it's in a different category. We're doing all the law enforcement and all the outreach and then all the... Okay, do we have our BLM person? And Mesquite, if you can get yourselves ready. All right, name, rank, all that good stuff for the...
Right, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Dan Westermeyer. I'm the Outdoor Recreation Planner for BLM in the Stillwater Field Office within the Carson City District. I'm standing in for Scott Fisher, our law enforcement ranger today. He's on detail down in Las Vegas right now and wasn't able to attend. So I'll give a quick presentation and run through it, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. What Scott's asking for is 2 of these mobile mini storage units you'll see over here on the screen. These are kind of like you're familiar with the Connex storage type boxes, but these are heavy duty and they're high security type units. They're used down in Glamis, and I believe he said by the Border Patrol along the California, Arizona, and Mexico border. They store things in there and have not had any issues with theft or people breaking into them because they are high security. They have double doors, so one of the intent of use for this is to keep sand rails, their UTVs, and other emergency equipment in here so they can drive in one end and then drive out the other end. They can also be set up for storage units, so any of their emergency equipment they can have and store in here. And you can see here's an example of what their high security storage lock. The door itself is completely reinforced, and pretty much someone would require a heavy duty torch, plasma cutter to be able to try to even attack this thing. This is an example right now of our entrance station at the Sand Mountain Recreation Area, and this is where they would like to put them. You see the 2 trailers on the left and right side right here, so here and here. Right now the sand rails are hauled out in this huge trailer here, and this is our recreation sandrail trailer that hauls out in this one here. The intent would be to put each container there, so we're covered with our environmental compliance. We don't have to do anything as far as that goes. The issue we have right now is the law enforcement rangers. We only have 3 in our office, and normally on the big weekends, 2 of them are detailed within our district to cover their area, so they can't get away. So when we have our large weekends, we normally bring in a couple of law enforcement officers from outside of the area. What happens is the sandrail and trailer, which are currently stored here in Carson City, has to be hauled back and forth every day out to the site. By having these containers, these can be left right on site, and that way any of the law enforcement rangers have access to them. Now, besides using the sandrails and the Razor for patrolling, the sandrails are also set up to haul passengers, and that's one of their primary use. This is our recreation sandrail, and you notice right here is a basket. So we have 2 riders, 1 driver, 1 rider in the back, and then the passenger, the patient, once they're backboarded, is inserted in the little basket right here, and they're able to transport them to the front where we can have emergency personnel attend to them or load them up into a helicopter or an ambulance. I don't have a good picture of the law enforcement one, unfortunately, but the same way this one is set up, it's got a basket in the back over here that's able to haul patients. This is the new law enforcement Razor they have set up. And that's it on the photos. So the intent would be to have these available not only for law enforcement rangers, but also REMSA, who come out and respond a lot of times for emergencies. They can keep equipment, extra backboard, seat collars, whatever else they need out there. They're available in case they get multiple calls. They don't have to run back to resupply. It's also available for Banner Community Hospital in Fallon. They can keep any supplies they need out there. And also for the local sheriff, who we work in partnership with, they're able to store either equipment or supplies, or anything else that they may need out there. This would provide quite a bit of savings and then timeliness as far as response and being able to help the OHV users out there. So our intent is to purchase 2 of these, set these up out there on site, and be able to leave the equipment out there. Have any questions?
All righty. Any questions from the commission? Mr. Rich,
I just have
Mr.
this is Jim Richardson, Commission. Your security plan for these, once they get on site, what is it?
Essentially, the only people who had access to them would be like the local sheriff, the emergency responders, and the BLM. As far as security, they would be set up out there as you've seen where the trailers were at, and then we'd have our normal patrol or normal people would be able to keep an eye on them as they drive back and forth. And then when staff is available on site, they're able to use them and keep an eye on them. Does that answer your question?
It does. Here's my caveat. We ship these from here to Afghanistan and back. They went out with, our stuff. They came back with rocks. So I would be, just think about that.
Come back with rocks.
Rocks, literally rocks. And the Connexes, just like those, in Pakistan, they uncrated them, filled them with rocks, sent them back to us.
Okay.
So that's something for you guys to just think about. They are not impenetrable.
I got you. Okay.
They can be get into. I mean,
Yeah, and
that's
right now,
something to think about.
we have a smaller 20-foot regular Connex box that's been out there, and I've been here for 4 years in this office. It's never been broken into. The only thing we store in it is signpost, signs, and fencing material. And that sits out there 24 hours a day, all year long, and no one's even tried it. And that one would be easy to break into. These would be much more difficult for anybody to break into.
Okay. Commissioner Lambert.
I have a lot of experience with these, and generally I've only had them stolen when I had an extra expensive amount of stuff in it, and it was employee related with a torch. They get sawn open with skill saws with diamond blades, but usually they just get loaded up and moved to Mexico, box and all. That doesn't happen very often unless you got a lot of money in them, so they'll be okay.
All righty. Any other questions from the commission? Yes, Mr. Elmore.
Commissioner Elmore, I don't know whether these need to be painted on site or not, or if they're just set there as is. But if we stipulated that there needed to be a sign or something painted on it that said provided with your OHV
Definitely,
dollars.
we're more than happy to do partnership logos. You can see the one,
They're required in our grant.
what they do is like the mini mobile, we'd be able to put up our own signs, information we have there. And we also have our signs in the campground along the trails, and on the bottom of those, we can put partnership logos as well. We do that with the Recreational Trails Program grant with the
But
state of Nevada.
if we fund the containers, you would be willing to put on there that they were provided
Fund
with
it.
OHV
Absolutely.
dollars? Okay, thank
Yep,
you.
no issue
All
there.
right, I saw Commissioner McKay first.
Do you enforce
Commissioner McKay, you need to state your name for the record.
Commissioner McKay for the record, do you enforce Nevada OHV stickers in the Sand Mountain area?
As a recreation planner, I don't. As a law enforcement officer, there's an agreement with the local sheriffs where we can do state enforcement on federal lands. So, and it works the other way as well, where the local law enforcement can do that kind of enforcement on our federal lands. So a reciprocal type of an agreement there. And yes, and that's one of the things our rangers are geared up for, and they have been doing that the last couple of large holidays. We've posted big signs, big sandwich boards, where we provide information, and we've taken the OHV Commission's flyer, the handbill, and we post those up out at our site as well.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Giroux?
Commissioner Giroux for the record. Is this going to be a fixed-based operation
Yes.
or mobile?
No, these
So it-
these are going to be set in place because they're actually quite heavy. So like I said, they're going to be set up on either side, right here, and then they're going to be stationary.
On concrete pad?
At the moment, on the compacted road base, we're doing our recreation area management plan where we're addressing all kinds of issues in this area. We need to address user parking, day use parking, so all these kind of things that are going to come in the future. When we do that, we're going to incorporate all of this, and whether or not we end up paving the whole area or not, we're not sure what's going to happen yet. But at the moment, it is compacted road base right now, and then they'll be put down in place, like I said, on either side.
Any provisions to not allowing people into the park without registration?
That is something we can entertain. It would something we'd have to run by our field manager. Right now, we don't check the individuals, and you can understand the logistics when these things are all packed up, either inside trailers or on trailers, stacked on top of each other when they come in, because sometimes they're really loaded down, to be able to inspect every single one on the way in. But that is something that we can, say, in the campground, go from camp to camp, because then they're already out and in place.
I know, like in California, the OHV parks, they won't allow you in with your machine unless it's registered. I know me as one of the commissioners trying to really increase our participation, could, say it that way.
That's understandable.
I'd be
and
very interested in that.
I would say that that's something that we can sit down and talk with our rangers about. I think mostly what we do right now is when they stop them for another type of citation or violation issue, then they will. Like I said, when they come in and, you might have, 5 or 6 ATVs in a toy hauler like this, to inspect them on the way in, to have them unload them all, that would be a logistic nightmare. But in camp, that would be something where they can make rounds and do camps, and that's something that someone would need to talk with the rangers about.
Okay, I think we'd have support from the board looking for, that extra help there.
All right, so I've got a couple of quick questions. Being that you're BLM, it's my understanding, it's not your fault, you get stuck with this, 22% of the grant has got to go to an administration fee?
We're not sure yet. And I sent an issue trying to contact a person at the state office who can help answer that, and he's on vacation till Monday. What happens normally is these would be considered what we call contributing funds. So somebody contributes money to us for a particular project. We guarantee it's used for that project specifically, and we write up an agreement. So that's not an issue there. Our problem is we have what we call indirect cost rates, and that is supposed to be covering the overhead. That's all our, like the building, electricity, for all the staff. That's something that our National Operations Center charges for all our accounts unless they're given a waiver. And in this particular case, it's what I call a pass-through, where money's provided to purchase something and then you're done. It's not an ongoing project. We can request a waiver and say, we don't think it should apply to this because all we're going to do is purchase something. And then if they give it to us, then we don't pay that at all.
Okay, so the point I want to get to is you're asking for 19,425. That 22% is built into that, I'm assuming.
That's part of the overhead.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would bring, that would be a cost reduction of about 4,000, which would bring it down to 15, and then you have to pay prevailing wage. And prevailing wage is relatively expensive. Come on, guys.
Well, prevailing wage wouldn't apply to this particular project because it's just purchase.
So if you partnered with, it's Churchill County out there,
Yes.
who would be using part of this. If you partnered with Churchill County, we wouldn't have to worry about the 22% at all, correct?
Looking at the actual budget line item here, is the purchase of the actual containers are 15,500,
Okay.
and then delivery is 3,000. So the actual purchase of the container is 18,500. The overhead, if they did apply that indirect cost recovery rate, would come out, a part of it out of the overhead, which they have in here. And then the remainder of it, I was talking with our field manager, if they did say, yes, we do have to apply that, would not be coming out of the $19,000, or actually the 18,000 for the materials, 18,500. It would probably have to come out of our end, because then we wouldn't be able to purchase the two containers
Okay.
in this case.
So for the sake of argument, we have limited resources right now. If we decided to, we love the idea, because I'll be honest, I can see a real need for this, and I think it's to the benefit of all of us to get this stuff done. If we turned around and said, we can't give you 19,000, but we can help you buy one container, and then maybe, later on next year when we've got more money.
That would definitely be an option.
What would be our real costs? How much would we have to supply you to get one container at a real number?
Well, half of the 15, so $7,500.
Okay?
And then I'm not sure on the delivery. They have delivery at 3,000 for two. If they would deliver $1,500 for one, then add $1,500 onto that. So you'd be talking, pretty much I would say half of what the total budget of the
So somewhere around
$19,000 is.
$9,000?
Yeah,
Okay.
9,500 or so, right?
Yeah, okay.
So that would definitely be an option, would be if you say you can afford one right now, then we can purchase that one and see how it goes. And if we decide we have a need for another one, we can
Right.
come back a second time.
And just to clarify something, just in case, because again, I'm sort of trying to do the numbers in my head, how many, law enforcement, we've got a budget of 75,000. We have about 200,000 worth of dollars that people want. If we, just for the sake of argument, we gave you 8,500, we came up with 8,500 that was left over from the other things, and we got you thing, and it was really 9,500 that you needed, would you be able to get that out of your own budget?
I talked with our field manager this morning, and she said we would definitely entertain that, but my guess is if you said, here's 8,500, you need $1,000, we would take that out of our Sand Mountain operating budget to cover the rest of it.
Fantastic. All right, are there any other questions from the commission? Mr. Lammett?
Only one. Sand Mountain's an $80 a year fee area and $20 a day, is that true?
$90 for an annual and $40 for a week.
But if you're there for a day, it's $40?
At the moment, we're going to be addressing that. All of the OHV recreation areas like Glamis, Dumont Dunes, the logistics of trying to do a daily where you're trying to sell a whole bunch of annuals and weeklies and you've got a daily, no guarantee that person's leaving and someone else is coming back in, whether a person buys a week or a
I
daily and
was just
stays.
trying to determine that it's truly a revenue area and you do have some revenues at that
Yes,
location.
and a
That's
lot of
fine.
it is the operating costs overall. Our revenues have dropped considerably, and that's one of the issues. We'd like to fund a lot of this, be self-funding itself. 6 years ago, the site brought in close to $280,000. The last couple of years, we barely broke $150,000, and this goes for salary, the solid waste, the sewage pumping, pretty much wipes that out, just the basic cost there. But we are entertaining, because we're doing our resource management plan, right now. We'll be doing a business plan as well as a recreation area management plan, and we're going to be trying to come up with a way where we can do non-motorized use as well as daily use. So if we can work it out.
Terrific. One last question, because we do need to get moving along here. Mr. Elmore?
Commissioner Elmore, just out of blatant curiosity, how many annual visitations, recreation?
Our estimate's between 50 to 70,000 a year.
Great.
It's approximately 60 to 65% of that from California.
All right. Any more quick questions? Because we do need to get moving along, guys. We only have until 4:30.
Just two quick ones. Number one, are these new units or refurbs?
These are brand-new units that are constructed, yes.
And where are they coming from?
Sacramento.
Okay.
Is there a supplier in the state?
For this type of a unit, the heavy-duty unit, they didn't find one. They did look. We can continue looking. We do have to go out to bid. So if somebody else comes up, in Nevada that has something comparable, what we do is we have to list our standards, what we want, and then it's open to public bidding.
There's a mobile mini vendor in Las Vegas. It's on Cheyenne and Nellis Boulevard.
That's not a problem.
All right. Okay. Any other questions? Sir, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And our next up is Mesquite. And then right after that, we have Lincoln County Sheriff's Department. Mesquite, you're coming in to us from Vegas?
I am.
All right, sir. Please state your name and any other pertinent information for the record, and go right ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Chief Tanner, Mesquite Police Department. To my right is Sergeant Rob Stepp from Mesquite Police Department. And we're looking for the extra points for a quick presentation, so I'll be quick.
Right, good.
Okay, the city currently offers 36.3 miles of existing named trails and 16.7 miles of unnamed built trails in the city of Mesquite. We were reached out to by, I think, some of your staff or people asking how many trails we had, if we had any, and we have several trails. I have a map that I think she has handed out that's listed with all the dotted areas. There's several trail systems all throughout our city. And at the end, I'll talk about a little bit. We have an ordinance. I know some other agencies have it too, where you can travel without a trailer to get to your destination, to get to those trails outside the city of Mesquite. It might be in other areas, Department of Wildlife and BLM, so on. So we allow people to travel on our streets and certain roadways. Besides 4 of them, they can just cross those roadways. But there's not a day that goes by I don't see several OHVs in the city of Mesquite driving when I'm going to and from work and to my meetings. I've never not crossed paths with OHVs every day, all day. OHVs access National Park Service and BLM trails via the Mesquite Trail System. Mesquite residents do not have to trailer the OHVs, like I said, in order to access these off-road recreation areas. Residents use their OHVs, travel throughout our city to get to different locations during events during the year. There's 3 major off-road events. They're held each year. An additional 4 events are in the planning stages. We just approved 2 of them. Eureka just basically traded the city land. They acquired land from the city, another 1.5 acres, and they just got signed off on a permit to open a venture park and BMX track to bring OHV users to Mesquite year-round. This just opened, and I think next week's the opening of it. Like I said, there's 53 miles of trails within the city. Police-owned OHV is a necessity. Personal OHVs have been used in the past. We have a couple, of course, guys have them at home and they bring them out. We do own one. We own just an ATV, no OHVs. ATVs are not very safe. We've had some wrecks on them and problems where they've got stuck, and then you only can put 1 person on them, safety-wise. We've recovered several stolen vehicles in OHVs and ATVs on the river, which is our side of the river, and then Bunkerville has the other side, which we patrol both areas when we're doing cases anywhere basically in Clark County. So we've recovered 12 OHVs and ATVs using trucks, and I was in one of the pickups that we popped all 4 tires the time we got out from the river. Search for missing persons, that's a constant battle between us and Lincoln County. I've had conversations with Sheriff Lee, and we constantly take their missing reports until they arrive because of the distance. We've had a couple pass away. We've had 2 OHV wrecks in the last 2 years where they wrecked and were deceased at scene, and we had to locate those. Took quite some time. We had to use a helicopter from Metro because we didn't have the equipment or resources to get out to the locations. We've searched for downed planes, same thing, using binoculars and trying to get there and using personal ATVs. Recovery of deceased persons I already spoke of. Like I said, the biggest thing is we have a partnership with Lincoln County. We have wrecks and different things on dirt roads off of our dump road that's Lincoln County owned. Then we end up following up on those investigations and investigating them per their request. Most importantly, I wanted to add the city ordinance that we came out with. A lot of people ask for in the city, and it's a hot topic constantly because every time we have an event in town, it seems like people don't listen very well. They do well for a while, and then they're upset because they're stopped. But we have more and more. The more events have came, I've seen an increase. I can't even tell you how much on OHVs on the roadways and in our trail system. And we do have people get lost because they're not from our area. They get outside a ways and it gets dark and they get lost and they start calling dispatch and we try to figure out how to get them in. So an OHV would be vital to our organization. I did a revised grant request. You probably don't have it in front of you because we are still working on the revised one because we were contacting and asked if we can spend less. Originally, we asked for the mid-grade OHV. It had to be a four-seater because we thought of several incidents where it would take more than one officer, safety-wise, to contact or help someone that's missing so they can pay attention where they're driving and have someone else more of a spotter. And so we did ask for the four-seat Razor, and we knocked it down to the smallest one they sell. I think it's a Razor 800. And anyway, so we knocked that down from $23,000 to $19,000, and I have that in front of me here. So that's our request. It is important to us. Also, of course, I put the doors on it. That's part of it, and that was about it in the top. So I'll take any questions you might have.
All righty. Do we have any questions from the commission? I'm looking around. Commissioner Baker.
I have one question. In the grant application, you talk about the timing that you were going to use this, and it's on a regular basis from May 1 through September 5th, and I'm just wondering why you're limiting it to the summer months.
We have the most activity around July 4th in the summer months on events. I wasn't only limited to that. I just didn't want to put on paper that it depends on our staffing. I talked to the patrol shifts, and if they have their maximum staffing, if everyone's there, we said maybe one of the guys on each shift can, and during the other months, they can go out and do enforcement. We get at least one complaint a week, people using OHVs driving on our walkway paths that a lot of our senior community use to walk in the morning. And that's at least once a week we get complaints, so it'd be good for that purpose, and also registration stickers, and then driving recklessly. We did have a guy wreck this last year, and he ended up being disabled over the wreck on the walkway path. So I said those months because our school officers, we were going to designate them to use them in the summer months on a frequent basis, more so than during the year, and then also use them on the events like you saw. But the idea is to use them anytime we have complaints, and more so than just what was listed here. But I didn't want to put something on paper and not be able to hold to that. But our plans are to allow a patrol officer, if they have all their people on the shift, no one's called in sick or at training or off on any kind of medical issue, that they would allow one of their persons to take that machine out and do enforcement in those areas. But summer months are more active and busy for us.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Giroux?
Commissioner Giroux for the record. Do you have, obviously you're going to flag this as a police vehicle, and my question would be, would the OHV Commission be able to be tagged along as far as a provided by?
Of course, yeah. We planned on the markings in the grant we wrote that we would, of course, write where it came from, where it was funded, and then, yeah, they can do a ride-along or whatever they like anytime they'd like to.
Okay, and is there any problem with dealing with a Nevada dealership, trying to keep our dollars in Nevada? I see the bid is for a Utah dealership.
No, not at all. The time restraints we had, when we found out about it, I think we had 2 weeks before, we did both areas. There's actually a Mesquite Motor one, too, that's in there. But no, I have full intention. We only purchase from Nevada, and we actually make our officers move to Nevada to work here. So I'm a strong component of you need to live and buy things in Nevada.
Thank you very much.
That was just a bid.
All right, Mr. Lambert?
Commissioner Lambert, for the record, I want to thank Mesquite for their participation in the OHV process and their strong support of OHV in general and being a leader in using 490 to build tourism and jobs, and I thank you. I have very few questions in regard to your commitment. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson?
Commissioner Richardson, sir. Just a quick question. Why a Razor as opposed to a lower model?
You know, safety-wise, I've driven all three. I'm an owner of some, and I've looked at and done studies, read online, talked to people. I had a friend that owned a dealership, and safety-wise, I've seen a lot of wrecks over